Hello and welcome to the Solo Coach Podcast. This is a podcast dedicated to those who feel called to take the path less followed. On this show, you'll find a mixture of solo and interview episodes covering all topics associated with personal development and living your best ever life. To find out more, visit thesolocoach.co.uk, @thesolocoach on Insta, or David the Solo Coach on LinkedIn. And now for this week's episode. Enjoy the show. Good morning, Fliss.
Morning. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on the show. This has been a long time coming. I'm really looking forward to this. So welcome, Fliss, to the show, and welcome to everyone listening. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to wherever you are. So to get us started, today it's my honour and pleasure to welcome Fliss Lee to the podcast. Fliss is a brand coach and brand strategist whose business, Honest Folk, exists to demystify the world of brand to enable creatives to talk about what they do confidently and consistently. I reached out to Fliss when I was having difficulties with defining my brand, and 3 different individuals recommended speaking with her. I've since had the pleasure of participating in one of her brand workshops. We've connected over our mutual love of solo travel in New Zealand, and I've been really enjoying listening to her fabulous new podcast called Do Your Thing. So absolutely loads to get into today. And I'd like to start by asking you, Fliss, can you tell us a little bit more about what you do now as a brand coach and brand strategist?
Yeah, so obviously brand coach is a made-up job. I'll tell you a bit about my background, shall I? And then kind of how I got into it. I started as a graphic designer, and I basically chose to do graphic design because I wanted to do something creative. But I felt like design was like art with a purpose. So I chose graphic design and I fell into the world of branding. But what I absolutely loved about branding was I loved creating something visual and seeing something that had come from an idea. But I also loved going, who's this for, and why are we doing this, and what's the purpose, and what are we trying to do with it? That's what I absolutely loved about a piece of design. And then through my career, I worked in various design agencies, and then I moved in house. And well, actually, when I was in New Zealand, I worked on a project where there was a brand strategist, and this was the first time I ever came across a brand strategist. And I was like, oh, what's this? And I was fascinated by her job. When I moved home, I got a job in-house and I was in a creative team. And yes, I was designing, but we were part of a repositioning of the business. So I got involved in absolutely everything. Got involved in all areas of the business, worked with the product designers, customer services, marketing, understood the business strategy, and rolled the brand out across everything from the way it looked to the way it sounded and what we said. And that was my thing. I absolutely loved it. But I don't think I really realised at the time that I absolutely loved it. And I say now that if I'd had coaching when I was employed, I think my employed career would have gone a different way because it would have helped me to understand what I actually loved about that. But because I'd always stayed in, I'd always been a designer, and that's what my degree was in. That's how I saw myself. So then I went self-employed, and I had this strategy side of me, which I sort of knew was a thing I loved. And I had clients coming to me for rebrands, and I'd ask them who they were talking to and what they were trying to say, what message they were trying to say, and they couldn't answer. So I started to help them do that, help them pull it out of their head. And then I started to develop a brand strategy service. And it was then I sort of thought, this is what I want to do full time. I don't want to design anymore. And then in COVID, I had a couple of people who I knew from a networking group come to me and say, Fliss, I really need to do my website. I need to do some marketing. But I want to get my message right first. And so I just sat with them over Zoom, obviously, and helped to pull it out of their head. And I absolutely loved that because not only was I helping them to figure it out for themselves, but I saw their confidence grow in what they do. It's like they suddenly saw the value of what they did through kind of our time together. And I thought, oh, there's a service here. And then over a year, I just evolved it and developed it. I had people being referred to me, and they were like the perfect fit for this service. And I pitched it to them. I was like, oh, so I do this coaching service, and I basically designed this brand coaching service around what people needed, and have evolved the majority of my business into it these days. And I've coached creative teams as well now. So it's been a sort of meandering journey, and it was never I planned to be doing brand strategy or coaching. But I think after nearly 20 years in my career, I think I finally found the thing that I absolutely love and that fits my brain, my creative and logical brain. Yeah. So that's how I got to where I am today.
Thank you, Fliss. Thank you for that whistle stop tour. I never tire of hearing people's stories, and I love it how so often as coaches, where we've got to and where you've got to in your career and kind of your niche, your brand, it you couldn't have foreseen where you were going when you started. It's
Mm.
evolved and it's grown and it's changed, and you've gone with it. And it feels like the term that's coming to mind is ikigai, that
Yes.
Japanese
Yeah.
principle of what you enjoy, what you're good at, and what the world needs. Where they intersect in between is your ikigai, and it very much feels like you're in that space with what you do.
Mm. Mm. But but it took a long time for me to figure this out, because I felt like when you go into the world of work, you put into a box. Like, you have to choose a career, a job title. So I boxed myself in because that's what my degree was in. And I remember a conversation with a friend about doing brand strategy. I was like, my job title as graphic designer doesn't work for me anymore. And she said, why are you not comfortable calling yourself a brand strategist? And my answer was, because my degree's in graphic design. And I think that just sums up how we box ourselves in so much to concepts that are almost forced on us in the working world, because we have to fit in a neat little package that everybody understands. And people are multifaceted and enjoy different things. And if you can find a job that is like the perfect fit for you. In fact, I found out the other day that that is the definition of niche, which was like a light bulb for me. The niche, to find your niche is to find the perfect fit job for you.
Right,
Yes.
right.
Yeah. So it's wonderful.
It's interesting. You're making me think of identity. Like we wear our job title as our part of our identity, don't we? We often introduce
Mm,
ourselves as, "Hi, I'm David. I work in IT," or "I'm David. I'm a coach. I'm Fliss. I'm a brand strategist." And it was interesting how you mentioned the work with your clients. It sounds like you start off working with them on their brand, but then this identity shift occurs for them while you're working with them. Can you tell us a
mm.
little bit more about that process?
Yeah. Yeah, often it does in so many different ways, actually. Because people come to me to work on the brand, and working on your brand's really exciting. It's like I'm very lucky that my job is something people get excited about. But it's also quite daunting, especially if you're doing it because you're struggling to put yourself out there. You're struggling to tell people what you do and articulate it well. And I think the identity shift, well, when you're in that space and you're struggling, you get imposter syndrome, don't you? You start to question what you do, because when you're not articulating what you do very well, you start to get in your own head. I mean, I've been there last year, and I totally understand it. You get in your own head and you just think, I'm not very good at this. That's where
Mm,
your brain goes. Um, So the identity shift I often see is because we're uncovering in the work we do a lot of how they got there. So when I'm with my clients, a lot of people often have you know, they do multiple things and they're struggling to articulate that. And part of that is about understanding where you've been and how you got to where you are today.
Yes.
And through doing that, I see people sort of really start to see what they're great at. And there's a massive identity shift there because it does require a lot of self-analysis, which can be really hard. But also it's that they're almost seeing themselves through somebody else's eyes when they're doing it. So that's this massive identity shift to get to where they are because they're seeing themselves in a whole different light once again.
I love that. I can really sense the coaching going on in that space, as I know what draws me to coaching and what I love about the coaching space when it
Yeah.
happens, when those conversations are when people start to, their perspective shifts a little bit and they start to sort of step into the role of an observer of the
Mm.
situation and they're able to take themselves out of it. You know, typically when something goes wrong initially, I know for me, it's all emotions, it's all emotionally driven, and
Yes.
it's really tricky to even talk about without getting exasperated and irate. But then when you talk that through with someone, it could be a friend, a family member, or a coach, you're able to take yourself out of the situation a little bit and like compartmentalize it and realize that there's actually more going on than initially met the eye.
Yeah, yeah, and working on your brand is about one of the hardest things I get my clients to do is to understand, put themselves in their customers' shoes, and to it's a bit of a flip of how they talk about what they do because
Mm,
what your customer is looking for isn't necessarily always what you do. If you're talking
yeah,
about the what of what you do, what if you're talking about the what of what you do.
yeah,
So someone's got problems and they're looking for something. So I'm asking my clients to look at what the client's current situation is and what they're kind of feeling and experiencing. And that can be a whole kind of flip of how you look at what you do. And that is more into the emotional territory, the transformation that you are giving people, and a lot of businesses don't go into talking about what they do from that side of things. We get stuck in the weeds of talking about like what we do rather than what it enables people to do, and that kind of flip really helps people to kind of see what they do from a complete other perspective. And it's one of the hardest flips to do because you're so in the weeds of what you do, it's really hard to get out of it. But
yeah.
when they do, I see this thing happen. It's like that's often when the light bulb moment comes in our sessions and they go, oh, I do that for people, wow. Which is wonderful to see because yeah, it's when people really go, wow, I really help people, which
Yeah,
is yeah,
the
what
penny
I'm
drops.
yeah, it's I love that moment so much. You can kind of see people's eyes. And I've had one client, she uh, she had a bath after one of our sessions, and I had an email from her going, "I've just had a realization in the bath," and it was like this. It was the thing that her business is all centered around, and she obviously just zoned out in the bath, and it went ping, which was amazing.
I think anyone listening is probably picking up already on the fact that what you do is not just limited to what I felt once upon a time would have been my definition of brand, would have been your colors, your logo, your
Yeah.
font, your house style, kind of brand through a uh, year 8 ICT class lens. But I realized from speaking with you and from this conversation again, brand is about a little bit more than just kind of your logo and how your website looks. There's a bit more to it than that.
Yeah, and I yeah. I guess because a lot of people get into branding through being a designer, like
Yeah.
that's why people think it is visuals. For me, branding is it's about designing your business on purpose.
Mm.
I see people getting stuck because they're almost getting into what they think, not necessarily what they think or what society thinks a business should be. So they're getting stuck, especially when you're self-employed. You start a business to have a business that fits you often. Um, Generally, that's the type of people I work with.
Mm.
And I see them getting really stuck and kind of like this friction because they're not happy in their business because they're the business runs them basically. It's like a job. And for me, branding is about intentionally designing a business that fits your life. It's about making choices around who you work with, how you earn your money, what you're trying to do to attract the right people, and make money in a way that kind of is consistent, and you're making decisions about how you do that. Your brand is like I always like to say it's the kind of the customer emotional side of your business strategy. Your business strategy is like the logical side, whereas your brand strategy is the other side. So it's like your purpose and who you're trying to work with and how you're going to communicate to them, and it's there as a bit of a decision maker, the entire decision maker. And it enables you to design your business on purpose and to make intentional decisions. So I talk a lot about planning, which I questioned for ages. I was like, why is a brand coach talking a lot about planning? But planning is essentially, if you can plan around intentional decisions and choices, then you're making the right moves in your business, and you're only working on things that are going to get you to where you want to be. So that is why I do a lot of planning work. Like I do quarterly planning sessions with my clients and things, because it enables them to have a reset and every season come back to what they're trying to do, and have I gone off course, what am I going to do next to get to that. And yeah, it's about being intentional and really designing it on purpose, rather than just being drawn into something that you get carried away with and don't actually want.
Thanks. But I really liked how you said, how you spoke about people start off on this journey, they build a business, but then their business ends up running them. And I think I've
Mm.
lost count of the amount of coaches in particular that I've spoke to that have left full-time work, maybe all at once, or maybe they've wound down and done some part-time work. They've built a business, they've built a brand, but then they've found themselves back in the position they were in when they were working full time, when they were trying to do everything for everyone, working all hours of the sun, stressed out and tired out, for example. But then they've created their own business and then done the same things again. So they've sort of
Mm.
self-sabotaged into that same position. And yes, they're earning some money, but it's not fulfilling them. And they've got all the same challenges that they've got before. And they've somehow found themselves in this place of thinking, what have I done? How has this happened again?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I've been there, because we have so many learned behaviors from many, many years of school and employment. I mean, my first job, I I worked long hours, and I wasn't confident to say I can't work late tonight as a 22, 23-year old. I didn't have that confidence, but my superiors didn't say go home. So a year or so ago, I was doing a lot of work around my own ways of working, because I got really stressed and just ended up not being happy in my business. And I had a bit of a moment when I realized, oh, I need to set boundaries out for myself, for
Mm.
myself. But I'd learned all these bad behaviors through career and school and all this. I've been taught to what you get a job, you work 9 to 5, and then if I worked at weekend, I'd beat myself up about it, even though I quite like picking up a bit of work on a weekend. But I shouldn't be doing that. It's always shoulds, isn't it? But we find ourselves getting back into those routines, and it is really hard to get out of those behaviors. And I know I work on it. I'm still doing it now. I'm still having to stop myself and go, actually, what do I want to be doing here? And I work with a lot of people on, but what do you want? Like, what's that? Mm-hmm. Do you actually want to? It's when the should comes in. I find myself going, can you just rephrase that without the should? And people like, you can see them twitching and they're like, oh, because it makes you question. And it's something I did. I said to my coach last year, I said, I've been catching myself every time I say should, and I've been thinking, what do I actually mean? Because we don't realize how ingrained it is. And I'm constantly hearing people say, oh, I should do this. Should you though? Do you need to? And we don't question it. It's just the way it is. But that's when we often, there's that friction.
Don't you think, Hal, when we're young in our careers, and possibly also in the early stages of our business journey as well, but I'm specifically thinking about what you said about like when you're early in the world of work, in your early 20s, say, there seems to be such a fine line between confidence and disrespect.
Yeah, that's really interesting, isn't it? Because we're so I had really good bosses in my first job. They were so good and I learned so much from them. But they were also so passionate about what they do. And the design industry as a whole back then, I'm not too sure what it is like now. I think it has changed a bit, but was very much work long hours, And I saw, not just there, in multiple places, clients come and say, oh, we've got this job. And them go, can you do it? Yeah, yeah, yeah. When the studio was already busy. And I've worked with clients since who say, oh, I'm so busy, I don't want to turn work away. You don't have to turn work away. You can say, I can do it, but in 2 weeks' time. But I never experienced that when I was in the world of work. So these are the poor behaviors that we experience that kind of are ingrained into us. But that is so, just as I think that's a really good example of like that disrespect of, actually, we're really busy. It's not, let's not make the team work long hours because we can't say to the client we can do it, but in next week. It's like this panic of, we've got to take the work in now, but it's actually really disrespectful to your team to not check in with them first. It's like an assumption that, yeah, your life doesn't matter, you can work long hours, you'll do it. Yeah, great. It's just, yeah, it just baffles me. It really baffles me. I still can't get my head around it now.
I know, yes. I mean, in projects and project management speak, they talk a lot about scope creep, but I think there's like boundary slip going on. And I'm curious, yes, it very much happens in organizations. It's happened in every team I've ever worked in as well. It seems the manager spends most of their time trying to fight back against requirements on the team, to protect their little team. But I'm wondering, I know that leadership starts with self-leadership, and from the perspective of running your own business, how do you stand guard at kind of your own front door and like establish healthy boundaries for yourself and not take on too much, but equally not displease your clients? How are we to get that balance right? Does it exist?
It takes constant work. I mean, I said I've had to do a lot. I mean, that's what my whole podcast is about. My whole podcast exists because I burnt out in my business because I was doing too much and it wasn't necessarily, I didn't have the boundaries in place. So my podcast is basically talking to people to learn how to do my thing my way. That's why I exist. And I have done a lot of work since that burnout, and I a big thing was for me learning to set my own boundaries out. And I did to a point, like I already, because I think because I'd experienced it in the world of work, I already, if somebody came to me for a work, I didn't take it on straight away. I'd say, right, I can start it in however in 2 weeks or a month's time. And people are very scared that somebody's going to walk away. But 9 times out of 10, people go, okay, great, because they don't want you to start it tomorrow. They're not expecting you to start it tomorrow, but we just think, oh, I can't say yes, I can do it, but in 3 weeks' time, because they won't want to work with me. That's not true. I don't know where that thinking that we all, like a lot of us have in our heads, has come from, but it's absolutely not true. People don't expect you to drop everything for them. But aside from that, I didn't have very many boundaries because I love what I do. I love my work, and I've always been, I guess, maybe I think I have always been my identity has been wrapped up in my work, like, and I think just like looking back, it's probably been I probably got praise for doing well at school and things like that. So you can see how it starts to creep into your personal life. So I was terrible at working 7-day weeks, picking work up, not all weekend, but not letting my brain switch off and not having these boundaries in place with myself. And just for example, like yesterday, I woke up feeling really tired. I had like 3 meetings, and in my head I'd gone, oh, I'm gonna do some content today. And I woke up and was like, you know what? I'm gonna have a slow morning, then I'm gonna have my first meeting, and I'm not gonna put any expectation on myself. And I've learned that I have to be really strict with myself, because I will just go, oh, I'll just pick up a bit of work because I think it's just a bit of work, but it creeps and you end up doing it for hours. And I don't let my brain switch off. So yesterday I let my brain switch off, and I just kind of floated around in between meetings, and I feel so much better. But I had to be strict with had to be strict with myself, because otherwise it's a working day. I should be working. There you go, it's that word again. But it's about setting out your boundaries, I think. I did a bit of work. I wrote them down, what are my non-negotiables? What will I not allow? And I remember when I first started working on my boundaries, had I was working for a client a couple of days a week, and the way I was working with them wasn't working for me. I felt very much like an employee. So I'd had Christmas and I thought about it, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to sort of state how I work, because I wasn't an employee, but I was going to state how I work. And I felt so anxious, and I did a little bit of work around. I talked to my therapist at the time about this, and it was about I thought that by stating my boundaries, they would not want to work with me anymore. So I got really anxious. So I went in there. I was like, I'm going to do it because I need to do it for me, and it was fine. I said, right, this is how I work. This is what I want to be doing. Yeah, great, fine. And slowly, more and more, as I set these boundaries out with people, even though it felt really difficult for me, it's taught me that it's actually it's fine to do, it's easy, and I don't get that anxious feeling anymore. I know that if something's really upsetting me, then I get that anxious feeling. I've started to listen to my body and go, oh, what's that feeling mean? What's making me anxious here? And what do I need to do about it? But it's really hard when you start to do it, because it's going against what you've always done. Like, I was a massive people pleaser. I like people to be happy. I still am a people pleaser. That's fine. But now I set my boundaries out and go, actually, I don't work like that. Or actually, that's not cool. And it's become a lot easier.
It's weird, isn't it? On the recovery journey of being a people pleaser, it's kind of, I realized it's less about trying to stop being a people pleaser, because that's trying to tell a dog not to chase a ball. It's going to still
Yeah.
happen, but
Yeah.
it's finding out and working out how to please yourself as well as
Yes.
others as well.
Yeah, you're so right. Like I want people to be happy. I'm happy to be a people pleaser. But you're right, you've got to please yourself first because ultimately human beings are inherently selfish beings. We are all looking out for ourselves. It's like when people say to me, "Oh, I'm really concerned about what people are going to think about me online." They're not going to think anything about you because it's like they're worrying about what they look like. We're inherently selfish beings. So if you take that, everyone else is doing what they want. Do what you
Mm.
want because everyone else is doing what they want, obviously within the law. But yeah, um, you've got to set out your own boundaries because no one else is going to do it for you.
Absolutely. I saw something the other day on social media saying that when you're young, you care about what everyone thinks, and when you're a bit older, you don't care what anyone thinks anymore. And when you're even older, you realize that no one was ever thinking
No
about
one was
you
ever thinking it anymore.
anyway.
When I was in my very first job, one of the managing directors, I heard him saying that. Like I was 22, 23, and that's stuck in my head ever since. I'm now 40 this year, and he's so right. He said in your 20s, and then it was in your 30s, and then in your 40s, and I was like, he's so right. Like no one no one's thinking anything about you apart from, oh my God, they're amazing. Like, I wish I could do what they're doing. That's probably what they're thinking about you,
Yeah,
which is what
exactly.
you want them to think about you.
And it's not suggesting that your loved ones aren't thinking about you. They absolutely are in a lovely way, but people are actually less bothered and shocked by what you're doing and what you're choosing to do for a living than you might initially think. I know when I started a
Yeah.
podcast and started a business and started talking about myself on social media, the first ever post on LinkedIn, I felt like I was coming out about the fact that I was starting a coaching business, and I thought I'm going to get ripped and torn to shreds by everyone. People are going to judge me, and I might even never ever get an employed job ever again because of what I've done. And then you realize that the reality is people go, oh, that's interesting. And then quite quickly move on. And
Yeah.
maybe the
Oh,
odd person will talk to you about it and be interested and inspired. And maybe someone somewhere will criticize you about it, but they probably won't even tell you because they'll probably say it behind your back. So who cares? Yeah.
yeah, and I genuinely think the criticism that anyone could say about you is probably nowhere near as the criticism you're giving yourself in your head.
Oh,
Like we are the
absolutely.
worst to ourselves. And I was having a conversation with somebody this week about this. You wouldn't say what you're saying to yourself to your best friend or anyone. You wouldn't say it. So yeah, we are the worst to ourselves. Yeah.
If anyone listening is enjoying this conversation as much as I am, this is your calling and your sign to go and listen to Fliss's podcast. It's one of the few podcasts of my friends and kind of outer circle, in or out of a circle. It's one of the few podcasts that I've actually caught up with and listened to every single episode because I've literally enjoyed it that much. I really like what you're doing, and it's so authentic and it's so sort of individually you and clearly you. And a few standout episodes. I really love the conversation you had with Chris, the coach, which, as a fellow coach, I could totally relate to that. The conversation with Gina about fun and happiness and enjoying your business journey was awesome. And then the conversation with Lucy, all about podcasting. It's lovely to hear people when I know both guests and I've met both guests having a conversation. It's like being a fly on the wall while they're having coffee together. But I genuinely love what you've created, and I'm saying this because I've enjoyed series one, and I want to hear more about what's to come in series two. If you're happy and comfortable to share, Fliss.
I've got a series two recording after this actually.
Ooh,
Um, it's more it it's gonna be more the same. I love just talking to people. I think I do what I do because I love finding out about what people do and how they think. So curious, and I just love to be understand people and listen to different perspectives and I'm a learner. I love to learn and talk to people. So it's really I love my podcast because it's just conversations and conversations with friends and new friends. I had one yesterday, and it was such a people's stories are fascinating, and I just love to hear them. So yeah, so we're going to have talking about sales and planning your capacity. I'm just trying to think who I've got so many really interesting guests on, and I want to talk to them about how they have how they've shaped things to work for them. I've got a client who I'm actually going to have on my podcast who came to me who was a graphic designer, freelance graphic designer. He said, really want to do sign painting. He was doing some agency work, he was picking up a bit of client, direct client work. He liked graphic design, but he didn't love it.
Mm.
And we worked together. And then we worked together a couple of years ago. And last year I emailed him as a check-in. He went, Fliss, my business is 50% sign writing now. And the other 50% is direct client work. And I love it. And I'm so happy. And I was just like, that is such an amazing transformation. Because when we worked together, he was fed up. He wasn't loving it. He just felt like he was doing it because it's what he'd always done. And just to hear the joy that it's brought him it's so inspiring, because people can you can change what you're doing. If you want to do something, do it. So I'm gonna interview him on my podcast, because I just love to hear how people have kind of got to that stage and gone, I want to do this.
Exactly. It's very much listening to your podcast. It's very much like when you're in a coffee shop and there's a conversation going on somewhere in the coffee shop and it looks really interesting, and you kind of sat there eavesdropping, trying to hear what they're talking about, because you kind of wish you were sat on that table with them. That's a little bit what it's like. And
Yeah.
I just want to say, thank you for answering that question. I appreciate, I very much put you on the spot there. No warning that I was going to do that. And just to echo that vulnerability and your open sharing there, with my podcast this year, there's a couple people in particular that I've invited on the show, and we're going to try and do it as a studio episode and hire out a podcast studio.
Oh.
And neither of them have their own businesses. They're traditionally full-time employed, but they are really fascinating people, and they're really good, close friends of mine who I've known for many, many years.
Mm.
So, but I want to I believe that there's a fantastic story in everyone. There's something you can learn from
Mm.
everyone. And I really want everyone else to hear their wisdom, their thoughts and their ideas, their philosophy on life, and just put them on a pedestal, because they're people that have helped me out over the years. They've looked out for me. They're kind of like the hidden heroes that are kind of in the background, go under the radar, and often you might not know them from Adam, but they're the people who just look out for you, and you know that if you're ever in an emergency, you could just call them, and they're there for you. So I appreciate. It sounds like a love story to two friends, but I want them to come on the show, and I want to share their story, and I believe that it's going to be a fantastic conversation.
Mm.
But don't know where it's going to go. Ultimately, don't know how it's going to look, but that's the joy of it. It's kind of leaning into it and just seeing where we get to. So I know those two friends are listening, and come on, both of you. Let's get our fingers out and get these episodes arranged.
You're right there. Everybody does have a really interesting story. Like I've not worked with one person who I've heard their story and gone, that's boring. I mean, I think my story's boring, but and then I'll talk about things like, and people go, oh wow, that's really interesting. Like, it's just what I did.
Mm.
It, everyone's got a story, but people don't put themselves out there because they just think, no one wants to hear from me. Yeah, they do. It's really interesting. Everyone's got a different perspective on things, and it's fascinating. If you're like me, you just like, ooh, I want to learn. You learn about people. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the perfect time, Fliss. You've really led me into the question I wanted to ask you, which is if people are listening and they say, okay, this is all really interesting, but I don't have my own business. I'm not
Mm,
self-employed.
mm,
I'm traditionally employed full-time within a business, and I'm an individual contributor or a manager, or maybe even not even a manager, just a subject matter expert of some sort. kind of, following the tradition of employment, and they
Mm.
say, and I haven't got a brand. So why is any of this relevant to me? And I believe that they have got a brand, but I want to hand that question over to you. Have people who haven't got their own business still got a brand?
Oh, that's a very interesting one. Um, well, yeah, I think you wouldn't call it a brand, would you? You'd call it your story, your purpose, and all these things. But if I think about until the end of last year, I did some fractional work at an e-commerce company, and a big part of that work was working with the creative team and coaching them and supporting them. And what we did was they didn't really feel like they had a voice. So I
Mm.
worked with them to individually to kind of work out what they loved about what they did and how they wanted to get involved. And I guess if them as a brand in employment was feeling like they could put their point of view across and be um, brought into conversations and used used as a person in the business for their skill and thinking and utilized, I think is actually the word rather than used, for their skill and their thinking. And part of that was about building up their confidence and belief in what they believe and what they love and what they're really good at, which is essentially what I do with my clients in my brand coaching. And then that confidence enabled them to go and say, I want to get involved early on. And I saw them doing this, one of the young designers. She was like, right, I'm arranging meetings, I'm sorting all this out. She's like rocketed just from having that confidence in what she really wanted, what she loves doing, and where she wants to go, which is essentially an understanding of having a bit more purpose in, rather than just being, carrying on being a designer and taking the work that came. She was like, actually, I kind of really enjoy this and I want to work on this. She
Mm.
put herself out there and she got herself into rooms and she got herself involved in things, um and it's like taking control. So I guess it's what I said at the beginning about brand being setting being a thing for you to a vehicle for you to design with purpose your business. It's the same thing, isn't it? It's having that intention and going, this is what I want to do, and kind of taking control of it and going, this is what I want to be known for in this business.
Yeah, thanks, Fliss. Indeed, what I was thinking along the lines of, would it also be fair to say that your brand within the business that you work in, whatever it
Mm.
is, wherever it is, if I was to go in one day when you weren't there and ask 10 people in that business, who is this person? What they would then all collectively say, that would form your brand within that
Yeah,
business.
yeah.
It's what
It
what
is
you're
a
known for, what you're, loved for, or perhaps not. Kind of anything and everything that they came up with, and particularly the themes and the things that repeated between them all, that forms who you are as a brand. It's everything that's in addition to your job title, because you can
yeah.
remain in the same business and have 10 different job titles, can't you, as you move around the business, but you're still the same you.
Yeah, and it's your personal brand, isn't it? But I guess what's really interesting now is we have so I do brand values with my clients, but we have personal values, and I think when you're a solo business owner, the two intermingle. But
Mm.
you have personal values, and they're what drive you. And I guess being a coach, we have both done personal values exercises, and that's really fascinating because you learn a lot about yourself and what you love. Um, and you can see the people who really understand their values and what drives them and make decisions based on them within a business, because they are those people who are known for being great at something in particular, or somebody goes, oh, I've got this problem, oh, you need to speak to so and so. They're the people who really sort of understand what they love, how they work, how they think, um, and what they don't want to, how they don't work. I think that's what starts to set out your USP as a person. It's your USP, isn't it? And it's your personal brand. It's very similar to a business brand. It's just with a business, you are intentionally making those decisions to craft a business brand. Whereas a person, it is very much about your beliefs. This is where when you're a solo founder or freelancer is very intermingled. So I believe that business brands should be truthful and not made up. It's not some mystical made up thing. So it does actually come from somewhere. The founders, thoughts and feelings and insights and wants and beliefs. So it's very, very intermingled with personal brand. I don't like the term personal brand because I do think people think, oh, I need to craft something. No, it's just you. It's just about knowing you and knowing what makes you tick and what you want and having conviction in that.
Yeah, exactly. It's people buy from people, isn't it? At the end
Yeah.
of the day.
Yeah. Whether you're employed or not, people buy from people. And I think having that confidence. I know that I've seen when I've had that confidence in my career and loved what I'm doing, I've seen that I can look back and go, oh yeah, people came to me for that because I put my all in on that and I showed my passion.
And if you're listening to this and you're a business owner and you're thinking, but I haven't got a personal brand and I don't know what my values are, speak to Fliss, because I guarantee you do have a personal brand and you do
Yes.
have values. They're all in there locked away, and it takes a good coach and a few good conversations to draw them out. And then I find as you start to get going, it becomes like a dripping tap at first, and then a tap at full speed as it starts to come together. It snowballs. That's a better analogy.
It snowballs, yeah. It really does. It starts. It's amazing how when it comes together, you can make all your decisions based on all of it, isn't it? It's just like it's like a light bulb suddenly goes on, and you go, oh, I know what I'm doing. It makes decision making so much easier.
So, Fliss, as we start to draw today's fantastic conversation to a
Mm.
close, even. Um, if someone's listening and they've got a business and they're interested, and perhaps they haven't got a brand, or they're building their brand for the first time, or maybe a bit like me, their brand feels like it doesn't quite fit them anymore, and maybe they've evolved and their brand's kind of stuck in 2024. Again, looking at myself, how how would you work with someone? How does that process work?
Hmm. Good question. So it's very much led by what everybody needs.
Hmm.
But I'll always start with um, why. I'm like that petulant child who's always asking why. My clients smile but why are we here? Why did you start your business? What do you want? And like I always set an intention at the beginning of every year, not a goal, an intention, because it's like a guide for all your decision making. So that's why I always start with that. It's like, what are we trying to do? What do you want from your business? What do you want from your work life? What do you want from your actual life? Because we need to design your business to support that. And then from there, it's really about, I mean, it is very, everybody needs to work on different things, but there's some core things, I guess, that I tend to work on with most people. What makes you tick? What do you believe? What do you stand for? Very important as a business. Then who are your ideal customers? Who wants what you've got? Who do you love working with? And then we look really into your ideal customers and what makes them tick and what they want. And the shared values, because it's the shared beliefs and values where you really connect with people. And also the joy of doing that is it puts the wrong people off. So you're not actually even having the wrong new business calls. They just don't happen, which is what we want. Don't want to waste your time. And then we would look at like your service or your product. product suite and kind of make sure it's designed for your life. So if you don't want to be working 40-hour weeks, but you've got time intensive and you're charging by the hour, then it's not gonna work for you. Not gonna work. But then how do you deliver your services, and how do you deliver them so that they fit you, either your time or your skill set, and how you work? And then we go into your marketing. So your messaging, where do you want to promote yourself? So I've had a client who's gone, I don't want to do social media. And she's got a really strong design business and she's not on social media. So, I mean, it is possible. So how do you get your work? How do you want to get your work? What works best for you? Like podcasting. Are you a great talker? Do you have conversations? Is that a good route? So we look at all these things, and then it's really at that marketing phase and the service design phase where things really start coming together, and I see people doing things and getting their brand out there because it all fits together suddenly and works for them.
Thank you so much, Fliss. I know I've got a few people I'm going to send this episode to after, who I definitely know have that challenge of the nervousness of posting on social media. And they've got the
Yes.
business, they've got a few clients, but they're wanting to expand it and grow it. But then it's the self-doubt and the imposter syndrome creep in, and it just becomes easier to kind of put it off and kick it down the road, kind of next week, next month, next year.
Yeah, and I'll just say on that, like, I get that too. I every so often, like, I did a lot of work last year on my messaging, and that got me into a spiral of doubt and imposter syndrome. And what I found was actually, I'm always telling people, if you're following someone and you are comparing yourself and you feel bad, unfollow them. Don't follow them. Comparisonitis is terrible. And that's where I got, because I was a bit unsure about what I was doing. I was looking at what everyone else was doing and trying to copy them. It's about really looking at what's important to you and what you stand for and what your point of view is, and having the confidence to put that out. And actually, as soon as you kind of hit on that, it becomes so much easier. And also then what you're saying is coherent. You've got coherence in everything you do, because it makes sense. If you're trying to copy everyone else, you're just going to fit in, and it's not going to feel natural to you. It's not going to feel like you, so you don't do it. Essentially, you just go, oh, I'm just not going to do it, because it's not right for you and not comfortable. So yeah, if you are in that space of thinking, I don't like posting, and you're looking at people and you're feeling terrible, unfollow them, block them, get it out of your life. Don't. It sounds terrible, but if someone's they're not making you feel bad, it's you looking at it. It's you looking at them trying to, like, get some inspiration, but thinking they're better than me, that is making you feel bad. So don't do it. Love from Fliss.
If I may add to what you said as well, to directly addressing those people who do feel, and I've been there so many times myself,
Yeah.
who do feel like the concern of who they might offend or how it might come across,
Yeah.
and it's easier to just not post at all. Like, what I'd say to them, there's a reason you have these ideas, this passion. Don't deny the world your gifts, put it out there. Start somewhere. No one's perfect. Even the people like Fliss who've been doing this for a long time with a lot of clients, very established, we're still learning. We're still working it out. We're still making mistakes. Don't let perfection get in the way of good enough.
Totally. There is no such thing as perfection. I very much I do business in a way of, like, I evolve. I create. Well, I said earlier, I created my coaching service when somebody needed it. And that is how I do. If I'd have waited, I mean, there's certain things I've put off, like doing a podcast for so long, because I was waiting for the right time or for it to be perfect. Things would never happen. But now I take the approach of try things, make it better as you're doing it. And it's co-design, isn't it? It makes it better. Yeah, that perfectionism can just really stop us in our tracks, can't it?
I agree entirely. And I also echo what you said about comparisonitis. I always say comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
And I know for me, if I'm having even if I'm having a good week, I can go on social media and look at other coaches' posts and think, oh, they're just doing so much better than I am. And their posts are so much nicer, their brand's so much clearer. They're getting these amazing testimonials, and they seem to be getting one every week, and maybe I get one every month. And it's so easy to just feel quite like like you're running and you're right at the back of the race, but it's
Yeah.
not a race. And then you have to realize that a lot of what people post, it can be a bit of a highlights reel, and it's not expressing the reality. And
Mm.
so t take it with a pinch of salt. And
It's just marketing. It
it's
is,
just marketing. Yeah,
it's just marketing. And if you see somebody doing that, then they probably just have a very well thought out marketing plan.
yeah,
It's marketing. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Wonderful. Well, thank you, Bliss. Last couple of questions before we tie up today's episode. If someone's listening, wants to get in touch, find out more. I know that there's lots of different ways to work with you. So, what's the best way they can get in touch with you and reach out to you and find out more?
Yes. So I am on LinkedIn under Fliss Lee. I'm on Instagram at it's Fliss Lee. So you can drop me a message there, find out more about me there. My website is honest-folk.com. And obviously my podcast, Do Your Thing, search Do Your Thing, and you can learn a little bit about me and hear some really interesting people talk as well, if you find that.
Thanks, Fliss. I'm going to put some links in the show notes. Definitely recommend giving Fliss a follow and reaching out to her and having a conversation. I know it's been incredibly useful for me, and coming along to your workshop was fabulous as well.
Yeah.
Final question. I'm going to put you on the spot again. If the whole world were listening right now, what message would you like to share?
Oh, um, I think if the whole world was listening, I'd like to share that you can do whatever you want to do. You just need to figure out the way to do it in a way that works for you. It's not impossible. If you have a dream of a certain career or a certain business, it is possible, and it'll take time doing it, but if you can have fun getting there as well. And don't think that won't happen to me, because everybody who has these dreams or lives them out, they're just normal people, and all they've done is figure out how they're going to get there.
Thanks, Bliss. I had a client who I worked with a couple of years ago, and I remember him saying that the journey of building the business was more satisfying,
Yes.
exciting, and enjoyable than kind of getting to the destination. It was the growth, and it was the, waking up and wondering how it was going to go, and then smashing all of his targets and making a lot of mistakes, making friends along the way, losing some connections that didn't serve him anymore. But it was the excitement of the journey, and he's since started a new business to go through that process again. So it's like you say, it's not always the destination. And you remind me of a book that I am yet to read called Everything is Figure Outable,
Mm.
because it ultimately is, isn't it? And if you
It,
set off on a journey and realize this is not for me, then you will figure it out and go in a different way, kind of on a side quest, and you will find out what is for you. But if you don't embark on it, if you don't start, if you don't try, you're never going to get to where you're meant to be.
no, you're right. And yeah, getting there is like a lot of the fun. If you can do it in a way that is enjoyable and you surround yourself with amazing people, then it's going to be fun. And who knows where you could go.
Yeah, absolutely. The pleasure of doing your thing and meeting a few honest folk along the way.
Yes, totally.
Thank you, Fliss. It's been an absolute pleasure and an honor. And I look forward to season 2 of your podcast. And hey, maybe one day in season 3, 4, 5, 10, 15, 20, maybe I'll end up being a guest as well.
I would
Ooh.
love that. I would absolutely love that. Thank you for inviting me on today.
Thank you for coming on. It's been a pleasure. And to everyone listening, I'll see you in a future episode, hopefully within the next couple of weeks. Thank you for listening to the Solo Coach Podcast. I've been your host, David Garwood, and you've been my fabulous listener. If you'd like to find out more, check out thesolocoach.co.uk, at The Solo Coach on Insta and David the Solo Coach on LinkedIn. And if you enjoyed the episode, I would love for you to leave a comment or a review and tell me what you enjoyed most about this week's episode. I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.